including white collar and even management staff were in trade unions. Solidarity, yes, there was solidarity on major issues when we achieved it. Solidarity wasn't automatic. Solidarity had to be worked for, because there were many unions in the shipyard, and they represented various trades. I mean, you had outfitting trades, for example, which covered fitters and sheet metal workers and electricians and joiners, and then you had construction or steel working trades, where you had steel workers and various types of steel workers, welders and caulkers and machinists and all kinds of people, coppersmiths and what. And often those people seen their interests as conflicting. We had many difficult problems sorting out demarcation disputes between workers, for example, especially when there was threats of job losses. You would have various workers saying that some aspect of the construction of the ship was their job, and others claiming it to be theirs. So solidarity wasn't just an automatic thing. But then when there were issues like general wage claims or issues of the future of the shipyard or matters such as that, and then with proper leadership, tremendous solidarity and courage came from the shipyard. And when you got them united, in my view, they were what was once described by a colleague of mine. They were the pick and shovel of the trade union movement. When they decided to go into a struggle, they actually welded together and were a very formidable group of workers to defeat. I always believed that the shall we say, the frankness and the disrespect that shipyard men had for title was some way related to the harshness of their working environment. They didn't have time to listen to nonsense and what have you, so they tended to be very direct people who said what they thought, and I thought that was refreshing, actually. Trade union contribution to the very difficult period that we come through in Northern Ireland in the last 30 odd years has been, you couldn't overstate it. I mean, they have made massive contribution to maintaining the peace that was maintained in industry and in all places of employment. But Northern Ireland is a place which has got sectarian difficulties, serious sectarian difficulties, and some would say that they have not diminished, in fact they have increased. And because the trade unions have succeeded in excluding the worst features of sectarianism from the workplace, doesn't mean that the sectarianism that's in the community isn't in the workplace, because it's the community that goes to work, and so it's all there with us. And the trade unions are continually facing very difficult issues, and have been for many years, and it is the case in the shipyard as well. And there's some serious problems facing is the balance of the workforce with the advent of fair employment. We were faced with many questions about the imbalance in the workforce, I should say, I suppose, with regard to Harn and Wolff, and the need to employ more Catholics in the shipyard. It wasn't always an easy message to bring into the shipyard, but still the trade union officials, and more importantly and more courageously, the shop stewards in the shipyard, brought that message and fought for that policy, brought that message to the workforce. Crisis in shipbuilding is certainly 20 years or more in the making. There are macro reasons for the cause of the crisis in shipbuilding, because it has been an international crisis. But within the overall crisis, there were some countries that managed the crisis better than others. Some countries that protected their shipbuilding better than others. The United States, for example, has a very protectionist policy. The Southeast Asian countries have a very protectionist policy, and unfortunately the British government left its shipbuilding without anywhere near the type of support and subsidy that their counterparts were getting in those other parts of the world, and allowed it to decline to almost irreversible positions. And the problem is that the decline of shipbuilding affects more than shipbuilding. There was hardly an industry in Northern Ireland that didn't have people in it who were trained in the shipyard. And I mean, when I say people, I'm talking about everyone from manual skills right through to managing directors of companies throughout Northern Ireland had their training in the shipyard. So the shipyard was, if you like, a nursery for the whole economy in that sense. And the skills and training that it provided were invaluable, and the loss of the shipyard will have, I think, incalculable negative consequences on the Northern Ireland economy. There's people all over the place who used to work in the shipyard who are now working at other things. There's hardly a job, from the retail industry to taxi driving to being members of the PSNI, to being clerical workers and civil servants and lorry drivers. So there's many people who worked in the shipyard who have managed to get work somewhere else. Unfortunately, there are many other people who worked in the shipyard who didn't, maybe because of their age or their health or whatever, who were left on the scrap heap until the end of their lives after they lost their job in the shipyard. And the other, I think, perhaps most serious consequence of the decline of the shipyard and other similar industries is the hopelessness that it has left, or the degree of hopelessness at least that it has left in the communities, especially among young people, because the shipyard was always there as a kind of a place where a young person had at least a possibility of an opportunity to develop some sort of a life. In other words, they could go to school, and there was the possibility that they could get some sort of a place in the shipyard or other similar industries and get some sort of training and put some sort of meaning into their life. After all, what's the first thing anyone asks you? Your name and address, perhaps, and what do you work at? And what you work at defines the person. And there's so many young people now who really feel that they're not persons, that they have no stake in the community, and they're not linked into the community. They believe that they're not part of the community. I think, I'm not a psychoanalyst, of course, but I get the impression that many of these young people feel sort of left out and aimless, and the decline of the shipyard and other industries like that has made a significant contribution to that, and has contributed therefore to many of the social problems that we face today. People say, look, they've got all these material things, you know, the trainers, fancy clothes, and bikes, and radios, and mobile phones, and we never had any of that, you know. But what we did have was the prospect of a job. Mm-hmm. You know, and people say, well, and you know, they put a negative on that. We had to get up and go to work. And you don't even have to get, these young ones don't even have to get up and go to work. But to get up and go to work puts a kind of a structure on your life, you know. Discipline. You have to get up at 7:30 and get your teeth cleaned and get the boiled egg into you and get to your work, and then you have to apply yourself to something. You know, it puts a structure on your life. You build friendships and develop all sorts of human relationships, and you develop confidence as an individual, and you feel that you're making a useful contribution. Like there's no set of trainers or mobile phones or none of that's going to ever compensate them for what we had. I mean, the way Shipyard, as I say, the way they think and their irreverence for station in life, it was always humorous. You were surrounded. You're always surrounded. I remember negotiating an agreement, or being part of the team that negotiated an agreement, and then we had difficulty getting the members to live up to everything that they had signed up to. And the managing director at that time, chief executive, was complaining about this, and there was a shop steward sitting beside me, and he was complaining that this was the agreement, and he was going through page by page, and the shop steward says, "Oh, I didn't agree. We didn't agree to that. We didn't agree to that." And the chief executive said, "What do you mean you didn't agree with it? Look at the back page. There's your name. You signed it. There's your name. You signed it." And the shopkeeper says, "Well, I might have signed it, but I didn't agree with it." Well, so, by the way, that's honest. That was the truth too. I didn't actually agree with it.
Oh dear.
And that kind of humour was always with you in the shipyard. So you'd get in very tense situations, you end up rolling about laughing, you know.
Was there quite a lot of pride as well at the kind of ships they were building? Did you sense
yes.
that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, very much so. Oh, yeah, the shipyard men were very proud of the ships that they built and the quality of the ships that they would have argued that, you know, they would have said about, you know, the other people who built ships cheaper than them, but they weren't as good as ships, you know, that kind of thing.
Was there ever much talk about the Titanic being built there? Or?
Oh, well, that's folklore, nearly, you know, and it is, in fact, folklore. I mean, the Titanic, the shipyard has a kind of a small promotion business in the Titanic. You know, there was a little historical sort of section of the shipyard that had the old design drawings and all that kind of stuff, you know, so our members were actually involved in that. But the Titanic was just folklore, I think I would describe it as, but there was tremendous interest in it. I mean, that Titanic quarter was a name, I believe, open to correction, but I believe that come from Fred Olsen, or from that quarter, the name Titanic quarter. But you know, the Titanic sunk after all, you know, and there was some humour about the idea of calling a prospective, shall we say, employment development after the Titanic. You know, everybody's proud of the construction of the Titanic and what, but it did sink. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was some questions about whether that was an appropriate name to call the Titanic quarter, which was really a real estate development. The Titanic quarter. It was nothing to do with shipbuilding. You know, it's to do with property. It's to do with Queen's Island developing away from shipbuilding. All the connection that I had in the discussions about Titanic quarter, they were aiming to make a technology park, or whatever you call it, a centre of excellence for high technology, and they were looking to bring in sort of premier companies and to get multi companies into this technology park, and really, if they were successful, then the only type of people, I think, or the main type of people that would be employed in such places would be highly skilled, highly educated people, I think. The degree of opportunity for young people would depend on the level of education and training that they got, and there's lots of complaints about the level of education and training that's provided for our young people in Northern Ireland. So on the whole, I would think that I would not be optimistic that the Titanic quarter, if it was a success, would make a significant contribution to the youth problems that I was referring to. I believe, and still believe, there was a future for shipbuilding in Belfast, and I believe that with all the difficulties that existed, that the destruction of the skills in the shipyard was almost a crime. And those skills were destroyed on the basis of very short-term financial objectives. I mean, skills which took generations to build up were dissipated in a decade. Skills which you could never replace, and which are now at a premium, by the way, throughout the world. You could never. They're just destroyed. There's still opportunities for shipbuilding. In fact, there is an aircraft carrier which the British government is purchasing, and I think it's going to employ people in every shipyard in the UK except Belfast, perhaps. And the only shipyard that has the facility, the dock facility, to build the bloody aircraft carrier is Belfast. Now work that out for me. And that's the current. That's 2003 information. That's my opinion. That's my position, which I would publicly state and challenge anyone to contradict.
I started